The sun had not risen yet, and the sky was still soft and gray when Farmer Arif stepped out of his small house. He stretched his tired arms and looked across his quiet fields. Normally, this was a calm morning for him. The kind of morning where he would breathe slowly and thank life for another simple day. But today felt different from the moment he opened his eyes. The air felt heavier, and the wind carried a strange cold smell like burned metal. He did not understand why. But his heart kept telling him something was waiting for him beyond the trees. Arif shook off the feeling and reminded himself why he had to leave early. Today, he wanted to buy a new cow from the village market. His old cow, Bari, had grown weak, and he needed another one to keep his farm running. So he took his long walking stick, locked his house, and began walking down the dusty path. Birds usually sang in the morning, but today the forest was silent. Only the sound of Arif's footsteps touched the ground. He looked up and blinked with confusion. The sky above him flickered with soft green light, like someone shining a giant lantern behind the clouds. It was beautiful, but wrong. He had never seen the sky behave like this. Not in his whole life, as he walked deeper into the forest path. Arif heard something strange, not the sound of an animal, and not the sound of the wind. It was a cry, soft at first, then sharper. Like a child in pain, he stopped, his heart thumping. He listened again, and the cry came once more, echoing between the tall trees. A child this early in the forest. He whispered to himself it made no sense. Yet the sound was real, against his better judgment. Arif left the path and walked toward the crying voice. The forest grew darker as the trees blocked the early light. The strange green glow in the sky flickered again, sending eerie shadows across the ground. Then he saw smoke, thin at first, rising from somewhere deeper inside the woods. His steps became faster, his breathing heavier. When he pushed aside a thick bush, his eyes widened. His breath stopping for a moment, a small glowing spaceship lay crashed between the trees. Its metal looked bent and burned, and sparks of blue light dripped from its sides like falling stars. Arif had seen many things in his life, but nothing like this. He stepped closer slowly, unsure if it was dangerous or safe. Then he heard the cry again, this time much closer. He followed the sound and found a small figure sitting beside the crashed ship. It was a girl, but not a human girl. Her skin was soft blue like moonlight. Her hair silver and floating slightly as if touched by an invisible breeze. She wore a strange suit that seemed alive, glowing softly around her tiny frame. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she hugged her knees. Trembling in fear, Arif felt a sudden pull in his heart. The kind he felt when he saw a scared animal on his farm. He moved slowly so he would not frighten her. "Are you hurt, child?" he asked gently. The alien girl looked up with big golden eyes. For a moment, she only stared, studying the human standing before her. Then, in a small, broken voice, she whispered, "My mom. Today was her last day alive. And you humans were not supposed to find me." Arif froze, shocked by her words. He had only come out this morning to buy a cow, nothing more. Yet now he stood in front of a grieving alien child. He didn't understand her words. But he knew she was in danger. He knew she needed help. Before he could speak again, the ground suddenly shook beneath them. The crashed ship groaned as if something inside was still alive. A deep metallic echo rolled out from the broken doorway. The girl gasped and grabbed Arif's hand tightly with her small, glowing fingers. "No," she cried, "it's waking up." Arif stared at the dark opening of the ship. Fear rising inside him like a wave. He could not see anything in the shadows. But he felt something moving, something heavy, something wrong. The trees around them shook as the ground vibrated again. Birds flew away in panic, filling the silent forest with sudden wings. Arif realized this was no ordinary morning, and whatever was coming out of that ship was not friendly. He tightened his grip on the alien girl's hand. The forest fell silent once more, waiting, watching, and trembling. And a single thought ran through Arif's mind. I only wanted to buy a cow. How did my life become this? The shadows inside the ship shifted again, growing larger, darker, and closer. Arif stood frozen as the dark shape inside the burned spaceship shifted again. The forest air felt cold against his skin, and the alien girl's fingers shook softly in his hand. She kept staring at the ship's broken doorway as if expecting a monster to step out at any moment. Arif swallowed hard and whispered, "Child, we must leave this place," but the girl didn't move. She looked weak, frightened, and exhausted. Her golden eyes shimmered with fear and grief. And for a moment, Arif felt his heart ache for her. This was no dangerous creature, no threat. Only a lost child who had seen something terrible. What is inside the ship? Arif asked, trying not to let fear control his voice. The girl hugged herself tightly before answering. It is only a broken core machine. But when it wakes up, it sends signals. Her voice trembled as she spoke. And if the hunters receive that signal, they will come for me. Arif stared at her, confused but listening carefully. Hunters. What kind of hunters? The girl took a slow breath, her silver hair lifting slightly as if reacting to her emotions. My name is Lyra, she whispered. I am from a star empire far from here. She pointed to the sky, where the strange green color still flickered like a warning light. Our ships travel through the star paths. But the hunters follow us. Arif tried to understand her words, though it all felt like a dream he had not woken from. What do they want with you? He asked gently. Lyra lowered her eyes, tears forming again. They want the star core. She said softly, my mother hid it before she died. She used her last strength to save me. Her voice cracked as she added, today was her last day alive. And she told me to run. Arif felt a deep sadness settle inside him. He had lost people too in his life. He understood grief, even if he did not understand aliens. He knelt beside her so they were at the same height. Lyra, your mother sent you here for a reason, he said kindly. But why come to my world? Why come to me? Lyra shook her head slowly. I did not choose your world. Our ship was shot down while we tried to escape. Her small fingers touched a glowing patch on her suit. The ship fell through a storm and crashed here. Another tremor shook the ground. And the ship groaned once more. Lyra flinched and grabbed Arif's arm. We must leave before the signal goes out, she whispered urgently. If they find me, they will burn everything around me. Arif took a deep breath. He was only a farmer, a simple man with no weapons and no power. But he could not leave a child alone in the forest while danger closed in. No one will burn my land or harm a child under my watch, he said firmly. Come. We must go. He lifted Lyra gently in his arms because she seemed too weak to walk. Her body was light like a feather, and a soft blue glow pulsed through her skin with every breath she took. Arif hurried through the forest, stepping over roots and fallen branches. Every few steps he looked back at the wreckage, afraid something might follow. The wind grew stronger, cold and sharp like winter. Lyra lifted her head weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. They are close. I can feel the hunters searching. The sky listens when they hunt. Arif's heart pounded harder. What do these hunters look like? He asked, but Lyra shook her head. They hide their faces behind armor. They show no mercy. And they follow the smell of star energy as they reached the edge of the forest. A bright blue flash lit the sky. Lyra gasped, her eyes widening. They received the signal, she cried. They know where I am. Arif looked up, breath catching in his throat. The green flicker in the sky twisted into a long, bright trail, like a burning comet falling toward the earth. A deep humming sound vibrated through the air. Shaking the leaves on the trees, "We need shelter," Arif said. Gripping her tightly, "My home is too far." "But there is an abandoned barn near the old river." Lyra nodded weakly. Trusting him, her tears glowed softly on her cheeks. "You are not like the others." "You are kind," she whispered behind them. A loud cracking noise echoed from the forest. Arif turned and saw dark shapes moving between the trees, tall, armored, and walking with heavy steps that made the earth tremble. Lyra hid her face against Arif's chest and whispered, "They found us." Arif held her closer, his fear rising but his determination stronger. He started running toward the abandoned barn. The shadows behind them grew larger, spreading across the ground like claws reaching for them. And the last thing Arif heard before reaching the river path was a deep metallic voice echoing through the trees. "Locate the girl." Arif ran as fast as his tired legs could carry him. Lyra held onto his shoulders, her small blue hands gripping tightly as the cold wind brushed past them. Behind them, the heavy footsteps of the hunters grew louder, shaking the ground like a small earthquake. The forest no longer felt like a peaceful home. It had become a place of danger, a battlefield. Arif kept his eyes on the narrow path ahead. Branches scratched his arms, and thorns tore at his feet, but he did not stop. Lyra lifted her head slightly and whispered, "They are gaining. They can smell the star energy on me." Arif did not know much about stars or energy, but he understood danger when he heard it. He tightened his hold on her and said, "Just a little more, child. We will reach the barn." The old abandoned barn stood near a dried riverbed, hidden behind tall grass and twisted trees. No one visited that place anymore. Not since the roof started caving in years ago. But for Arif and Lyra, it was the only shelter they could reach in time. Suddenly, a bright blue beam shot past them, striking a tree and slicing it clean in half. The tree crashed behind them with a loud crack, sending birds flying in panic. Lyra gasped, "The drones." They sent their sky machines. Arif looked up and saw two black metal drones floating above the trees. Glowing blue from their cores, they moved fast, scanning the ground with thin red lines, looking for Lyra's energy signature. "Stay down," Arif said as he ducked under a fallen log. He crawled with Lyra in his arms. Dirt covering his clothes, the drones hovered above, humming like angry insects searching for prey. Arif held his breath, silently praying they would not be found. But then one of the drones beeped sharply. A bright red light shone directly onto them. "They found us," Lyra whispered in fear. Arif sprang up and ran again, the drone firing blue shots that exploded behind him like tiny bombs. Each blast shook the ground, throwing dirt and leaves into the air. Lyra raised her hand weakly and created a small, shimmering shield around them. The next beam hit the shield, sending sparks flying. She cried out in pain, and the shield flickered like a dying flame. "Don't use your strength," Arif said. "Save it." But Lyra shook her head, tears falling from her golden eyes. "If I don't protect you, they will catch us both." Arif refused to let that happen. With one strong push, he ran down the slope and reached the old barn. He kicked the weak wooden door open and rushed inside, laying Lyra gently on the dusty floor. The barn was dark and smelled of old hay and rust. Broken tools lay scattered around, and the roof was cracked enough for daylight to slip in. Arif peeked through the gap in the wall and saw the drones circling outside. They were searching, scanning every inch of the ground. But for a moment, they did not enter. Lyra pushed herself up and touched a panel on her suit. A tiny hologram opened, glowing softly in the dim barn. It showed a woman with the same silver hair and gentle golden eyes as Lyra. The woman looked tired but peaceful, as if she knew her end was near. "This was my mother's last message," Lyra whispered. She said, "Trust a human farmer. He will save you." Arif felt his heart twist inside him, How could she know about me? He asked softly. Lyra shook her head. I don't know. She saw something in the future, or maybe she believed there would be someone like you before Arif could speak. The barn roof creaked loudly. A shadow moved across the floor. Long and sharp, Arif looked up slowly. Dread filling his chest, someone was on the roof. And the footsteps were too heavy to belong to a drone. The roof dust fell in thin lines, and the wooden boards bent slightly under the weight. Lyra's eyes widened. It's not a drone, she whispered. They sent a soldier. Arif grabbed an old iron pitchfork lying nearby. He knew he was no warrior, but he needed something. Anything to protect the child. The roof creaked again as the shadow moved toward the center. Lyra crawled closer to Arif, trembling. A deep metallic voice came from above. Target located. The roof cracked, splitting open as a tall armored figure dropped into the barn. Dust exploded into the air as the alien soldier landed on the ground. Its eyes glowed bright red through its helmet. Staring directly at Lyra, Arif stood between them, holding the pitchfork with shaking hands. Lyra pulled herself behind him, whispering, "He is one of the hunters." A scout, the hunter took a slow step forward. "Human," it said, in a cold, echoing voice. "Give us the girl, and you may live." Arif did not move. His voice was shaking but strong. "No," he said. "You will not touch her." The hunter tilted its head slightly. As if confused by his courage, then it raised its weapon. A glowing blade of blue energy that hummed like thunder. The barn walls vibrated as the hunter stepped forward. Arif tightened his grip on the pitchfork. The air grew cold. The shadows grew longer. And the barn seemed smaller, and Lyra whispered behind him, "Please don't let him take me." The hunter stood inside the broken barn, its metal armor shimmering with cold blue light. Dust floated around its tall body like snow in a storm. Arif felt small standing before it, but he did not step aside. His hands shook as he held the old pitchfork. Yet he stayed between Lyra and the danger. The hunter tilted its helmet, studying the human farmer with slow, mechanical curiosity. "Your courage is unnecessary," it said in a deep, metal voice. "We do not harm humans unless they interfere with our mission." The glowing blade in its hand hummed louder. A warning. Arif's heart thumped in his chest. "I am interfering," he whispered. "I will not let you take the child." The alien soldier paused. Almost surprised by the simple farmer's words, Lyra, trembling just behind Arif, pressed her small hand against the wooden beam for support. Her golden eyes flickered with fear, and tiny sparks of light pulsed under her skin. The hunter took one heavy step forward. "The girl carries star energy," it said. "She belongs to the Hunter Legion." "No," Lyra cried. "My mother died to keep me away from you." The hunter ignored her and raised its arm, the blade glowing with deadly brightness. Just as it swung forward, the ground trembled with a deep rumble. A sudden blast of air rushed through the barn, whipping dust and hay into a storm. Something landed outside with a crash that shook the earth. The wooden walls vibrated and cracks spread across the old roof. Arif felt the air grow colder, heavier, as if a storm had arrived right at the door. The hunter soldier lowered its blade slowly. "It is here," it said, almost sounding afraid. "Who?" Arif asked, though he felt he knew the answer already. The barn door burst open with such force that the hinges snapped. The heavy wooden planks flew off like paper, and a tall, terrifying figure stepped into the doorway, blocking the sunlight completely. He was covered in dark armor, thicker and sharper than the scouts. Blue flames burned inside the cracks of his armor like molten stars. His helmet was shaped like a beast, with sharp metal horns and glowing red eyes that pierced the shadows. Lyra gasped and fell backward in fear. Her voice broke as she whispered, "Ravik?" The hunter Captain Arif's body froze as the creature stepped fully inside the barn. The air around Ravik felt heavy, as if gravity itself obeyed him. Even the scout soldier bowed its head. "Captain Ravik," it said. "The target is here." Ravik walked with slow, powerful steps toward Arif and Lyra. Each step made the floorboards scream under his weight. His voice echoed like thunder inside the barn. "Human farmer," he said. "You stand between a hunter and his prey." Arif forced himself to speak. "She is a child," he said. "She needs help." Ravik's red eyes glowed brighter. "She is not a child," he growled. "She is the last carrier of the Star Corps." Lyra cried. "My mother died to protect it. You cannot take it." Ravik turned toward her, his armored body towering like a mountain. "Your mother was foolish," he said coldly. "The Star Corps is not for your weak kind." Arif stepped in front of Lyra again, holding the pitchfork tightly. "Then you will have to go through me," he said, voice steady. A farmer standing against an interstellar warrior. A small act of bravery that even the scout found shocking. Ravik studied Arif for a long moment, his voice lowered, almost curious. "You are brave for a creature with no power." Arif did not answer. He simply stared back, shaking but determined. Ravik lifted his hand and activated a glowing device on his wrist. A hologram appeared, showing Lyra's mother, weak and fading. She spoke her last words. "Run, Lyra. Trust the human farmer." Arif's eyes widened in shock, and Lyra covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. Ravik crushed the hologram with a squeeze of his armored fist. "Her last wish was meaningless," he growled. Then he stepped forward, his voice echoing through the barn like a storm. "Give me the girl, human," he said, "and your world will remain untouched." The offer hung in the air like poison. Arif understood what Ravik was saying. The alien was willing to spare Earth if Arif surrendered Lyra. If he betrayed the child who trusted him, Lyra whispered from behind him, "Please, don't let him take me." Arif's heart tightened. He remembered the look in her eyes when she spoke of her mother. The fear, the loneliness, the hope she placed in a simple human she didn't even know. Arif looked up at Ravik. "I won't hand her over," he said quietly. "I won't let you hurt her." Ravik stood still, then slowly straightened. "You disappoint me," he said, voice cold as ice. "Then your world will burn." He raised his hand and spoke into his wrist device. "Arm the troops," he ordered. "Burn the village." Lyra cried out. No, Arif felt his stomach twist with terror as he realized what was coming. Outside the barn, the heavy footsteps of dozens of hunter soldiers echoed like a coming storm, and Ravik's glowing red eyes watched Arif with dark satisfaction. "Let us see," he said slowly, "how long a simple farmer can protect a star child." The barn shook as the hunters gathered outside, their heavy metal footsteps echoing across the land like war drums. Dust drifted from the ceiling, and the wooden beams groaned as if the whole structure understood the danger closing in. Arif stood with the pitchfork still in his hands, breathing hard but refusing to back down. Lyra clung to his shirt, trembling as red lights from the hunter helmets flashed through the cracks in the walls. Ravik towered in front of them like a living shadow. His glowing red eyes stared into Arif's soul, cold and merciless. "You chose your fate, human," Ravik said. "Then you shall fall with the child." Arif knew he couldn't fight Ravik with strength. He knew he couldn't fight 100 armored soldiers with just an old pitchfork, but he also knew his land better than anyone. He knew every old tool, every hidden corner, every trap he had built over years of farming, and something inside him whispered, "Use what the land gave you." He stepped back slowly, guiding Lyra toward the back door of the barn. Ravik took one step forward, and Arif made his move. He swung the pitchfork at a lantern hanging above them. The lantern crashed to the ground, the flame bursting into a bright flare. Dry hay caught fire instantly, filling the barn with thick smoke. The scout soldier rushed forward, but Arif grabbed a rope hanging from the roof and pulled with all his strength. A heavy pile of hay bales dropped from above, slamming into the scout and pinning it to the ground. Lyra gasped in shock. Arif didn't stop. "Run," he whispered to her. Now, they slipped through the back door as smoke filled the barn. Outside, the air was cold but fresh. Arif looked around quickly and saw the old tractor parked beside a broken fence. It hadn't run properly in years. But it was their only chance. The hunters spotted them, shouting commands in their metallic language. Red lasers cut through the air, carving lines through the grass. Lyra raised her hand weakly and created a small shimmering wall of blue energy. The lasers hit it and scattered like sparks, but the shield flickered dangerously. "Don't use your power unless you must," Arif said. Helping her onto the tractor, Lyra shook her head. "I must protect you." Arif climbed up and turned the engine key. Praying to every star and every god he knew, the engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life with a loud, shaking growl. Arif drove the tractor forward with all the force he could manage. The hunters fired at them, lasers hitting the ground and exploding in bursts of blue fire. Arif drove down the hill, through old muddy pathways and shallow ditches he had dug during rainy seasons. The tractor bounced and rattled, but it kept moving. Lyra held onto his arm. Her eyes filled with fear. Ravak stepped out of the burning barn, his armor glowing brighter with anger. He pointed toward the fleeing tractor after them. He roared, "Do not let the girl escape." Drones shot out from the sky like black arrows. Soldiers sprinted behind them with heavy stomps. The entire hunter legion was chasing a single old farmer and a small alien child. Arif reached the cornfield at the bottom of the hill. He drove straight into the tall stalks. Disappearing among the rows like a shadow, the hunters followed. But they did not know the field like he did. Arif used every turn and hidden path, weaving through the field with skill gained over years of harvest work. Lyra looked behind them and whispered, "They are spreading out. They are surrounding us." Arif gritted his teeth. Let them try. He drove toward a narrow trench he had dug last season for water. At full speed, he steered into it, and the tractor dropped down safely, hidden by the tall plants. The hunters above didn't see them disappear and ran past them. For a moment, Arif breathed in relief, but the moment was short. The sky flashed as a new drone descended, bigger and heavier. It scanned the field with a bright red beam. "It found us," Lyra cried. Arif jumped off the tractor and took Lyra into his arms again. He ran through the trench until he reached an old tool shed, half broken but still standing inside. The air smelled of rust and oil. Old traps and ropes hung on the walls, leftovers from years of farming and repairing. Arif placed Lyra gently on the floor and grabbed a coil of rope, metal hooks, and a bag of sharp nails. Lyra blinked in confusion. "What are you doing?" Arif tied the rope to a heavy metal frame, his hands moving fast and steady. "I am a farmer," he said quietly. "This land taught me how to survive." The shed shook as a hunter approached. Its heavy footsteps grew louder. Arif's trap was ready, a simple device built with rope, gravity, and old tools. When the hunter broke through the door, Arif pulled the rope. The metal frame swung down like a hammer, crashing into the hunter's helmet with a thunderous impact. The creature fell backward, sparks flying from its armor. Lyra stared in amazement. "You defeated it." With farm tools, Arif nodded, his voice steady. "I will use anything to protect you." Outside, Ravok roared in anger. His voice shook the ground itself. "Find them. Burn everything if you must." Arif knew this was only the beginning. But he stood tall, holding a wrench like a weapon. The simple farmer had become something else, a guardian, a fighter. a man who would not allow evil to touch the child in his care. And Lyra looked at him with newfound hope. "My mother was right," she whispered. "A human farmer will save me." The air around the tool shed grew colder as Ravek's soldiers gathered. Their glowing red visors cut through the night like burning eyes watching from every direction. Arif stood at the doorway with a wrench in one hand and an old wooden plank in the other. He breathed slowly, not to calm himself, but to keep fear from reaching Lyra's eyes inside the shed. Lyra pressed her hands against the dirt floor, her small body shaking. The faint blue glow under her skin flickered like a candle fighting the wind. Arif knelt beside her for a moment and touched her shoulder gently. "We will get through this," he whispered, though even he did not know how. Lyra looked up with tears forming again. "Arif, the star core inside me. It is getting unstable." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "If it overloads, it can destroy everything around us." Arif felt his chest tighten as he understood the danger. Not only were the hunters closing in, but Lyra herself was becoming a ticking storm. He held her hands carefully, feeling the warmth and the soft trembling of her energy. "We will protect you," he said. "And we will protect the village." Before Lyra could answer, the ground shook violently. The shed roof rattled, dust fell like rain, and a massive shadow blocked the moonlight outside. Ravak had arrived. His heavy armor glowed brighter than before. Burning with blue flames of anger, his broad silhouette filled the entire doorway as he stepped forward. The shed almost seemed to bow under his presence. "You cannot hide from your fate," Ravak growled. "Hand over the star child." Arif stood tall, even as fear wrapped around his bones like ice. He took a step forward and placed himself fully between Lyra and the hunter captain. "You will not take her," he said, voice steady. "Not while I am alive." Ravak raised his weapon, a long glowing blade pulsing with deadly energy. "You are delaying the inevitable," he said coldly. "No human stands against the Hunter Legion." Arif did not answer. Instead, he swung the wrench at a hanging metal chain above the doorway. The chain snapped, releasing a heavy bundle of iron bars Arif had prepared as a trap. They fell straight onto Ravik, crashing against his armor with a loud, metallic roar. The impact shook the ground. The shed walls trembled. Even the soldiers outside paused, but Ravik did not fall. The bars slid off him like rain rolling off a mountain. Ravak stepped forward again, his red eyes glowing brighter. "Impressive for a farmer," he said, "but not enough." Arif backed away slowly. Trying to pull Ravik deeper into the shed, he had one more trap. A desperate one he had hoped never to use. Ravik followed, each step shaking the wooden floor. Lyra tried to stand, but she fell to her knees, clutching her chest as blue light flickered wildly. "Arif, the core. It's overloading," she whispered. Her voice was weak, breaking if it bursts. "It will destroy everything here." Arif glanced at her, then at the giant hunter. He knew they had only moments. He turned and shouted, "Lyra, cover your eyes." Ravak swung his blade in a wide arc. Arif ducked and pulled a thick rope hidden behind a wooden post. A barrel of old fertilizer and chemicals tipped over, crashing at Ravak's feet. The moment the chemicals touched Ravak's heated armor, they ignited in a blinding flash. A massive blast of smoke and sparks erupted, filling the shed with choking fumes. Ravak roared in anger, throwing pieces of burning wood aside. Arif grabbed Lyra and stumbled out the back window of the shed. He ran across the muddy field as smoke rose behind him. The moonlight showed the fear in Lyra's eyes. Her hands glowed brighter and brighter. "I can't stop it," she whispered. "The star core is breaking." Arif knelt in the field, holding her trembling hands. "Look at me, child," he said softly. "You are stronger than you think." Lyra sobbed. "My mother said I must protect the core, but it is too strong." Her small body trembled violently. Blue light spilled from her palms like liquid stars. Arif wrapped his arms around her, shielding her from the cold wind. "You will not face this alone," he whispered. "You are not alone anymore." Behind them, Ravak burst from the collapsed shed. Flames clinging to his armor but dying in seconds, his rage burned hotter than any fire. "You cannot escape," he roared as he marched toward them. "Give me the core, or your world will fall." Lyra's glow intensified. Her voice cracked as she cried, "If he takes the core, he will destroy galaxies." Arif stood and faced Ravik. He had nothing left but courage. He picked up a broken shovel from the ground and held it like a sword. "You will not touch her," he said. "You will not harm my world." Ravak raised his blade, preparing to strike. The ground vibrated as the star core inside Lyra reached its limit. A storm of blue energy exploded around them, sending shockwaves through the field. Ravik shielded himself with his armored arm. Roaring in frustration, Lyra fell to her knees. Eyes glowing brighter than stars. "Aref," she whispered. "He's going to take the core," and before Arif could reach her, Ravik lunged forward with impossible speed. His armored hand grabbed the glowing star core energy directly from Lyra's chest. A beam of blinding blue light shot into the sky. Lyra screamed. Arif shouted her name. And the hunter captain stood holding the core, glowing like a stolen sun in his hands. Asterisk Ravik stood tall in the moonlit field, his armored hand raised high. The stolen star core pulsed like a trapped sun between his fingers. Blue light flickered across his armor as he tightened his grip. Lyra lay on the ground, weak and gasping. The glow inside her fading fast. Arif stared in horror, his heart pounding so loudly he could hear nothing else. He rushed to Lyra and held her small hand, feeling only a faint warmth. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Please. Stay with me." Lyra opened her golden eyes slowly, tears shimmering like liquid stars. He took the core," she whispered, "my mother's sacrifice." "All gone." Arif shook his head. "No," he said. "Nothing is gone while you still live." Ravik turned toward them, raising the glowing core above his head like a trophy. "With this," he growled, "the hunters will rise above every star empire." His voice echoed across the fields, cold and victorious. But then something unexpected happened. The star core began to flicker, not with power, but with rejection. Ravak frowned as the light in his hand shifted, twisting violently. The core's glow shook like a wild storm trying to escape his grip. Lyra coughed weakly, her voice trembling. "It will not accept him. The core chooses its guardian." Arif looked at her with surprise. "Then who does it choose?" he asked. Lyra's dim eyes turned toward him. "It chooses the one with a pure heart," she whispered. "It chooses the one who protects life, not destroys it." Suddenly, the star core burst outward with a sharp blue crack. Ravak roared as the energy scorched his armored hand. He staggered backward, sparks flying from the cracks forming in his armor. The core ripped itself free from Ravak's grasp and floated in the air like a glowing star. Arif felt the wind shift around him. A soft blue strand of light reached out from the floating core and touched his chest gently. He gasped as warmth spread through him. Not painful, but powerful. Lyra stared in shock, her eyes widening. It chose you," she whispered, her voice full of awe and relief. Ravik roared louder, shaking the ground with fury. "That core belongs to the hunters," he growled. Not to a weak human farmer. He charged at Arif, with his blazing blade raised high. But the floating star core reacted instantly. A bright pillar of light shot downward, surrounding Arif in a protective shield. Ravak's blade struck the barrier, but it bounced off with a thunderous crack. Arif felt the shield, warm and alive like a heartbeat around him. The core floated lower, stopping just inches from Arif's hands. He reached out slowly, sensing the energy. When his fingers touched the glowing sphere, the entire field lit up with blue fire. A wave of power spread out, knocking Ravok and his soldiers backward. Lyra struggled to sit up, tears spilling down her cheeks. "My mother was right," she whispered. "She said a human farmer would save me." "She saw your heart." Arif held the star core carefully, feeling it respond to him like it knew his thoughts. He stepped forward, facing Ravok with a steady gaze. "No one burns my village," he said, "and no one harms this child." Ravok rose from the ground. His armor cracked and sparking. He roared and charged. But Arif lifted the star core and spoke softly. "Protect." The core responded instantly. A beam of pure light shot forward, hitting Ravok square in the chest. The hunter captain screamed as his armor shattered. Blue energy cracked through him, breaking the darkness inside him. Then silence. Ravok collapsed into the dirt. Defeated, his soldiers, leaderless, turned and fled into the night sky in terrified retreat. Their ships vanished like dying shadows, leaving the fields quiet once more. Arif dropped to his knees and placed the star core beside Lyra. It glowed softly, healing her with warm light. Her eyes opened brighter, her strength returning. She touched Arif's hand gently. "You saved me," she whispered. "You saved my mother's hope." Arif smiled softly, tears filling his eyes. "No child should stand alone," he said. "And you won't stand alone again." The star core rose once more, spinning gently in the air. A soft humming sound surrounded them. Then the light expanded, forming a small starship made of pure energy. The ship hovered above the field like a newborn miracle. Lyra stood and looked at it with wide eyes. "The core is giving us a way home," she said. "A new beginning." Arif felt the wind warm against his face. "Do you want to go back to your stars?" he asked softly. Lyra shook her head and held his hand tighter. "I want to stay with you," she whispered. "You are my family now." Arif lifted her gently into his arms. The starship opened a soft glowing doorway, waiting for them. Together, they stepped inside. The ship rose into the sky, shining brighter than the moon, and as it carried them upward, Lyra rested her head on Arif's shoulder and whispered, "My mother was right. A human farmer saved me."